Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm so excited to have you all here. Whether you're a brand new trainee just stepping onto the port for the very first time, or an operations veteran looking to brush up on your systems knowledge, we're going to dive right into the absolute heartbeat of cargo logistics, port railway operations. See, a port isn't just where the land meets the sea. Oh no, it's this massive high-speed exchange zone, and the railway, well, that's the powerful engine keeping the entire thing alive. Let's get into it. So let's kick things off with a pretty fundamental question. We see these massive ships dock every single day, right? But what exactly happens to all that cargo the second a long 10-day voyage finally ends? Well, that's when the real work actually begins. To really put this into perspective, just imagine a single cargo vessel pulling up to a berth right now. It's carrying 60,000 tons of thermal coal. That is just a staggering amount of material. Think about it. That's roughly the weight of 10,000 adult elephants. And that ship has to be unloaded fast because, well, the ocean doesn't wait. The next vessel is literally already out in the water waiting for its turn. If we don't evacuate that 60,000 tons of coal quickly, we are facing an immediate threat of massive yard congestion. That cargo has to move, and it has to move fast. Here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. First, the big cargo challenge. Second, the logistics relay race. Third, rail versus road transport. And finally, inside the port network. All right, starting with Section 1, the big cargo challenge and how we avoid yard gridlock. The absolutely crucial point to understand here is that a ship can't leave until its berth is completely clear, and it sets off this massive chain reaction. The berth can't clear unless the yard evacuates. If the yard fills up, unloading stops. If unloading stops, the ship just sits there idle. It's a huge logistical nightmare. So rapid bulk cargo evacuation isn't just nice to have, it is absolutely essential to prevent total yard gridlock. A railway is really the only way to handle that sheer volume and keep the whole system from backing up right into the ocean. Moving on to Section 2, the logistics relay race, looking at our cargo movement flow. Think of this whole process like a giant relay race where perfectly timed handoffs are everything. The cargo flows continuously. It kicks off at Step 1 with the ship, then gets handed off to Step 2 at the berth. From there, the baton passes to Step 3, the yard where cargo briefly accumulates. Then we have the critical handoff to Step 4, rail loading, and finally, Step 5, the exit. Every single one of these steps has to be perfectly synchronized. The urgency here is off the charts. If any runner in this relay race trips up, the whole operation just grinds to a halt. And trust me, you definitely do not want to be the one who drops a 60,000-ton baton. That brings us to Section 3, rail versus road transport, and why efficiency matters so much. Now, just take a look at the sheer volume discrepancy here. A standard Indian broad gauge rake can carry between 3,500 and 4,000 tons of bulk cargo in a single fluid movement. To match that exact same volume using the road, you need 80 to 100 heavy trucks, making individual, totally uncoordinated trips. Just imagine the traffic jam, the exhaust, and the literal administrative nightmare of dispatching 100 heavy trucks just to equal the volume of one single smooth rail movement. It's honestly night and day. As this quote perfectly sums up, rail can carry what 40 to 50 trucks carry in one rake. That's the power of rail. Now, depending on the truck capacity and the rake size, those equivalent numbers can scale even higher, as we just saw, but the core point remains exactly the same. Rail completely outperforms road transport for these massive bulk operations. This is especially true when heavy commodities like coal or fertilizer need to travel long distances to inland destinations safely and efficiently. Okay, let's wrap up with Section 4, inside the port network and our dedicated infrastructure. It is incredibly vital to understand that the port railway isn't just the national Indian railways extending their tracks inside our fences. Not at all. It's a completely separate, internally choreographed system. The port utilizes its own dedicated track layouts, its own port-owned or contracted locomotives, and operates under its very own command structure. It's essentially operating in its own little world until the exact moment those full rakes hit the national grid at specific connecting gates. Here is a clear breakdown of the exact infrastructure components you're going to need to identify out in the yard. Think of this as your daily toolkit. We've got the main line connecting us outward. We have the loop line. There's the siding or spur, the loading berth, which is the exact spot where cargo transfers happen, the signal post, which controls movement authority, and the point or switch, the junction that actually diverts a rake from one track to another. You really need to know these intimately to understand how the yard breathes. Let's actually define a couple of these specifically, starting with the loop line. This is an absolutely critical piece of infrastructure. The loop line acts as a dedicated waiting area for rakes either right before they're loaded or right after. Think of it as your safety valve. It ensures the main lines stay perfectly clear for high-speed, active movement. It basically keeps our transit zones from turning into giant parking lots. We also rely heavily on sidings or spurs. Now, unlike a loop line that holds entire trains, a siding is a short branch track. It gives us a dedicated space to park individual wagons. Maybe they need some maintenance or they're just being decoupled, but it lets us park them without clogging up the primary tracks of our relay race. Every single component out there has a very specific job to keep the cargo flowing out of the port. So, I want to leave you with a final challenge to really test your new knowledge today. Based on everything we've just covered, the constant threat of yard congestion, the fast-paced steps in our logistics relay race, and the exact track components like loop lines and sidings, what exact flow will you orchestrate when 10,000 tons of thermal coal hits your yard today? Picture the path from the berth all the way to the exit gate. How will you use the power of the port railway to keep that cargo moving? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.